Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
If you're looking for a gut check on the health of the U.S. economy, you could call up an economist. Or you could ask a hairdresser.
Do you feel like the economy is good right now?
I'm nervous, honestly. I'm nervous for what's going to happen in the industry specifically.
That's Sydney Jackson Green. She's a cosmetology student who works at a salon in Springfield, Pennsylvania. She met our colleague Ben Steverman at a beauty industry trade show in New York earlier this spring and told him that recently, business has been slowing down.
You know, I'm very young and a lot of my clientele is young as well. So some of these outrageous prices is affecting business.
She does a lot of braiding, and the supplies you need for braiding hair, the prices have gone up significantly.
Braiding hair has gone up probably at least like $3 since I started doing hair. Now, if you need 4 or 5 packs for your hair, now it just went up $12 to $20 depending on how much hair you have.
Also, hair coloring, hair dye, those have gone up.
People still want their hair done, but now people are learning how to do it at home. I've had a bunch of at-home disasters.
Her clients will call her because they've done something at home, like they've dyed their own hair, and it just looks terrible, so then she has to fix it.
When it comes down to shampoos, conditioners, they're also increasing their pricing. So now when a client needs a deep conditioner, she's like, hey, can I get it next time? But that your hair needs it this time.
To Ben, Sydney's story felt eerily familiar. People trying to save money by skipping trips to the salon, experimenting with DIY styles. If that brings up memories of the COVID-19 pandemic, think back even further to the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis.
There was a hairstyle phenomenon called recession hair. Supposedly, there was a trend of people getting lower maintenance cuts in the financial crisis.
Official economic data can be slow to reflect the actual state of the economy. And though Trump's tariff policies and the reaction to them have stoked fears of another coming recession, so far, key economic indicators are stable. The stock market has mostly rebounded from its dive last month. Unemployment hasn't gone up, and in April, inflation rose by less than forecasted. The strongest warnings have appeared in data that reflect how consumers and companies are feeling about the economy. A University of Michigan survey with data going back to the 70s found that in May, U.S. consumer sentiment hit its second lowest level on record. Last week, Walmart warned it might soon have to raise prices. And this week, when Target released its first quarter earnings, it revealed sales have been slowing. In times like these, people hungry for more real-time color can get creative and turn to unofficial sources of economic data too, like beauty industry trends.
The first thing you cut down on in a slowdown might be that facial or that massage.
Or that haircut. Today on the show, what beauty spending can tell us about the health of the U.S. economy and what shifts in behavior at home and at the salon are signaling about where it's headed next. This is The Big Take from Bloomberg News. I'm Sarah Holder. Back in March, Ben Steverman went to a beauty show and cosmetics conference where he hoped to check the pulse of the U.S. economy. 32,000 spa technicians, hairstylists, colorists, and makeup artists were there too.
It was 2 giant rooms connected by a tunnel, and on one side was all the spa stuff, and on the other side was all the hair stuff. And you would go by these booths, and some of them were quite elaborate. They would have demonstrations going on where they're putting goop on people's faces or they're cutting hair as a demonstration. It was hundreds, thousands of different products being sold. And it was fun.
What kind of mood were you picking up there? Was it jubilant? Was it anxious?
It wasn't that they were in a bad mood. It was only when I asked them about how's business that they told me things that were a little troubling.
Ben met a woman who does eyelash extensions and hair coloring in Brewer, Maine.
I used to have a lot of bleach and tones, whereas now they're kind of going for that lived-in moment so they can go longer between their appointments.
The more natural the hair color, the less obvious it is if you haven't had your hair dyed in a while. Ben also talked to an executive at a New Jersey-based skincare company that's recently launched mini versions of its products.
The price point was better, so I think having that as an option for people, they can still be entered into our products line without having to spend X amount of money.
And he met a massage therapist in Northern Virginia with a lot of federal government workers as clients.
It's feeling a lot like 2008 with the market crash and everybody not knowing what to do, and so they don't want to spend that excess money.
I was hearing this from, okay, here's this person in Manhattan, and here's this person in rural New Hampshire, and they're saying the same thing. That was really interesting. The people who'd been doing this for decades, they were the ones who said, this feels like other slowdowns I've been through in my career, and I'm worried.
In spas and salons across America, beauty professionals are noticing clients cutting back and shifting their spending in the age of tariff-related uncertainty. And beauty companies are noticing too.
There's some indication that the major cosmetics companies expect at least a little bit of a slowdown in the coming year.
That's Jeannette Neumann, a reporter on Bloomberg's consumer team. She writes about the beauty and cosmetics industry, an industry that's experienced a massive surge in growth worldwide in recent years. Between 2021 and 2023, industry analysts estimate that the global beauty market grew by up to 8%. But that trajectory could be changing.
The CEO of L'Oreal, so one of the biggest, beauty companies in the world, he said last month, so in April, that he expects the beauty category to grow globally like 4 to 4.5%. And that was on the slightly lower end of what they had been expecting. And this is not just L'Oreal, this is globally. So that just gives you a sense like 4 to 4.5% is still really, really good growth.
But it's a slowdown in that growth.
Exactly. It's a slowdown in that growth.
The L'Oreal CEO said that this year his growth prediction was on the lower end because of a slower than expected American market. And he said it didn't even account for how, quote, international turmoil and tariff wars could make things worse. Even though Trump has pumped the brakes on some of his most aggressive tariffs on China for now, reciprocal tariffs are still set to take effect in July. And there's concern those levies could make everything from manufacturing to packaging more expensive, driving up prices across the beauty market and pushing customers to be more selective.
What they're really more worried about is that consumers seeing all of this talk of tariffs, concerns about higher prices, concerns about a potential recession in the U.S. will pull back on their spending.
Over the past few years, highly involved, multi-step, multi-product skincare and makeup routines have been on the rise. It all started during the pandemic, when people were stuck at home with time on their hands, sharing beauty tips on TikTok.
How I do my barely there, glowy makeup routine.
This is my toner that I use, and you just tap it into your skin.
Now, most people use one primer. I use 3.
But Jeannette says there are signs that trend could be moderating.
So, for example, setting sprays have been declining in the past couple months. And some of the analysts I spoke with think that that is in part because people are starting to kind of cut some of these steps out of their routines.
Certain products could be more vulnerable to getting cut than others.
There's some incipient signs that we're seeing that people can prioritize their spending on kind of better and fewer products. L'Oreal reported their earnings recently, and their higher-end offering actually did really well, better than their mass market products. And that can also be like I'm cutting back on, step 12 or 11 of my beauty routine, or I could be cutting back several steps and I decide that I'm actually going to buy that really expensive lotion because I think that it, works better, it's worth it. I'm going to focus on that and put my money towards that. So I'm buying a more expensive lotion because I'm not buying the setting spray, I'm not buying 3 or 4 different serums.
And while some people are choosing to invest more in the products they do keep buying, others are willing to downgrade, according to data from a beauty industry research group called Dash Intelligence.
What we've been seeing recently is that kind of less expensive versions of fragrance are becoming more popular. And this is potentially in reaction to just consumers saying, hey, I'm worried about a potential recession, higher prices, I'm going to watch my wallet. So things like roller balls, which are cheaper versions of fragrance, dupes have continued to go from strength to strength.
So it could be mid-tier products that suffer the most, as people continue to buy the higher-end stuff and cheaper dupes or knockoffs. This is something Ben realized at the trade show, too. that even in hard times, it's unusual for people to stop moisturizing entirely or go gray. Instead, big beauty brands and solo stylists alike are noticing consumers making shifts, spacing out their appointments, buying smaller bottles, and finding less expensive alternatives. After the break, who the beneficiaries of these beauty industry shifts could be.
Beauty is discretionary, but I think to a lot of us, it feels a little bit less discretionary than some of these other categories.
That's Jeannette Neumann again.
We're talking about discretionary spending, meaning things that you don't have to buy. But the lotion that you might use every night feels a little bit more like a have to buy than a piece of, a skirt or a t-shirt. So that's one reason that it's actually quite a resilient category in times of downturn.
So beauty spending is discretionary, especially when it comes to services like massages and spa treatments. But it's also resilient to economic shocks, and some products and services are more resilient than others. Ben Steverman says it's a dynamic that showed up in past downturns. During the post-9/11 recession, Leonard Lauder, then the chairman of the board of Estee Lauder, famously shared that lipstick sales had spiked. People kept buying cosmetics through the Great Recession, too. Journalists and economists have a name for the phenomenon. They call it the lipstick effect.
The idea is that there are certain luxuries that people stick with because it makes them happy. And it's something that is a relatively inexpensive way to have something that gives you some pleasure. Just because we're in a slowdown doesn't mean everything slows down.
Lipstick wasn't exactly a COVID-era winner. Remember all the masks? But the pandemic's economic disruptions made people invest in other small self-care luxuries, like skincare. And now, in our current era of economic uncertainty, Jeannette says data from Dash Intelligence shows that a different set of beauty products are having their own sort of lipstick effect, seeing their sales increase as others slow down. At-home salon replacements.
Artificial nail sales are up about 13% in March versus February, and the growth has also been incredibly strong year over year. And we're also seeing strong increases in sales of color and bleach. So some signs that people are doing some of these things at home rather than going to salons with the same frequency.
And some of the people who've continued going to the salon are choosing lower maintenance treatments. Industry analysts say when it comes to hair dye, for instance, they're expecting to see more natural roots, warmer hues, and fewer blondes.
There's a term called recession blonde, which I think is maybe a TikTok term, that people can kind of shift the coloring of their hair to make it easier to take care of. So if your roots start to come in, you don't have to go to the salon within like a week. You could wait a little bit longer, and so that keeps your costs down. And these are different theories that are kind of, I think, fun to debate. Are these economic trends or just beauty trends, right? Beauty trends kind of come and go. Are some of the things that we're seeing because trends are just shifting, or is it that they're pushed kind of by the economy?
Right. The at-home nail kits might be cool and trending on TikTok, etc., in part because they're a little cheaper.
Exactly.
So, does a rise in do-it-yourself manicures mean the market's about to crash? Does more at-home bleach mean recession hair is officially back? Well, Ben and Jeannette didn't go that far. But they both said that in corporate earnings reports, conversations with sources, and cultural trends, they are seeing recession indicators. And while none of these consumer behavior shifts alone can predict the U.S.'s economic trajectory, they do offer hints at what parts of the beauty industry are best positioned to get through a downturn. Like large multinational companies that operate several different brands, companies like L'Oreal and Estee Lauder.
They have a lot of leverage to work with their suppliers and, for example, on their higher-end products to raise prices.
It could be tougher for smaller players, like some of the people Ben met at the beauty convention. Those salons and companies that are less able to quickly rework their supply chains to deal with new tariffs, or adapt their product offerings or scales of production based on consumer spending.
This is an industry that has been growing pretty strongly coming out of COVID. And so you hope that some of these businesses that started up, and there's hundreds and thousands of new businesses have started up in this area, you hope that they can survive it.
Bloomberg Intelligence has been running a survey of American consumers over the past few years. And this January, almost half of the 1,000 respondents said they'd cut back on other purchases before scaling back on beauty and personal care spending. But that's actually lower than the number of respondents who prioritized beauty spending in 2024 and 2023. In other words, after so many years of pandemic-fueled growth, peak beauty just might be behind us. Resilient, but still discretionary. This is The Big Take from Bloomberg News. I'm Sarah Holder. This episode was produced by Julia Press. It was edited by Tracy Samuelson and Tanya Garcia. It was fact-checked by our editorial team and mixed and sound designed by Alex Sugiura. Special thanks to Lindsay Dutch. Our senior producer is Naomi Shavin. Our senior editor is Elizabeth Ponso. Our deputy executive producer is Julia Weaver. Our executive producer is Nicole Beamsterboer. Sage Bauman is Bloomberg's head of podcasts. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe and review The Big Take wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps people find the show. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.